Okay, so welcome everybody. We're going to be doing a little bit of centering and then we'll get into a little bit of tarot. So I'll just invite you to come into whatever shape works for you in terms of that centering practice. So you might want to stay seated, you might want to lie down. Any shape is welcome, just wherever you feel like you can breathe easily and just kind of tune into yourself. So take a moment to get settled into whatever shape you've chosen to do your centering. You are totally welcome to do some movement with that if you want to fidget or stretch or roll your head or whatever, just any movements that your body is kind of initially asking for, feel free to do. Start to tap into your breath, which might look like taking a few sighs. It might just mean noticing what your breath is doing right now. Collecting all of your pieces into this moment. Acknowledging that our practice is for our whole selves, heart, body, and mind, and also spirit. So allow yourself to notice the earth beneath you that supports the weight of your body. The particular land that you're on and your relationship with that land. Observing yourself as a self, but also as a part of a whole, an interconnected web of everything. And taking some time just to notice what that's like today, what's happening in your body and your heart and your mind, and just showing up to it with compassion and kindness, allowing whatever it is to be okay. And one of the ways that we connect here is by observing what's happening in the phases of the moon. And that's an energy that we all share. So we're just a few days off of the new moon. I think it was on Tuesday. So it's just a couple of days into the waxing moon. So we're kind of on that border period where some of us are still feeling the new moon energy, which is a little quieter, a little more introverted. And some of us might start to feel the energy of the waxing moon kind of rising. So just taking a moment to notice where you're at with that. And if you are feeling a little extra tired or quiet internally, that's completely normal and fine in this phase. And if you're noticing yourself kind of looking ahead and wanting to maybe think about taking some action on some things, that's also appropriate for this time, and that energy will continue to build over the next few days. So just noticing what it is for you today. And before we connect together, let's just take a moment to notice if there's anything that your body is wanting to communicate to you right now, if there's any message that's coming up in the quiet. Beautiful. And you can stay right here in this shape as long as you'd like. If you feel ready to start to come out of it, you can deepen your breath and maybe bring in some gentle movements. So we're going to do a little bit of tarot reading together for today's moon and for the group. So feel free to come closer to the screen if you want to see the card and help me read it. Or you can stay as you are if you want to just chill as you are and listen. That's fine too. You can always join up when you're ready. So we have a really interesting card that came up for today's practice. I really love this card and I have it. It hasn't come up for me in a while. So it's called the Hanged Woman in this deck. It's often called the Hanged Man, and lately you see the Hanged One. So, you know, the gender doesn't really matter so much, but it's a very similar image in most of the decks I have anyway. So I'd love for you just to take a look at the image and then notice kind of how do you see the card? What do you notice about it? What do you feel when you look at this image? And I can bring it a little bit closer to you so that you can see it just in the pieces. What comes up for you guys?
Well, for me, it's Cindy here. I feel an ephemerality, and but I also feel some kind of an opposite. So juxtaposition of what's the word I'm looking for? A bit anxious, being hung upside down doesn't feel quite right, but there's a kind of serenity or surrender in it. Maybe that's the ephemerality that I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What else are you guys noticing?
She seems really calm and peaceful, which is kind of surprising for being a hanged person. I would have expected kind of something a bit violent or disturbing, but she looks very, yeah, serene. And it's kind of that juxtaposition that Cindy was talking about. Like I expected one thing and yeah, she just seems very effeminate and calm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
There seems like an element of submission to it where she's like her hands are behind her back, but it doesn't necessarily look like she's bound. She's just sort of experiencing it, almost like it was a place to get to. Like somehow this is where she's meant to be. It looks very gentle too, like the strings and even the web around her don't look violent, or you know, they look very gentle and comfortable.
Yeah,
she's achieved.
I've started to notice about this deck too that the like shade of the light is quite prominent for a lot of the cards. So, you know, a darker hue will kind of give like a bit more of an intense energy. And the lighter hue often has that kind of more gentle, peaceful, like positive kind of energy to it. And, you know, in other decks, it's actually a very similar image and you guys are just dead on for, you know, what's often seen with the hanged person is that feeling of like, well, that doesn't look comfortable, but the person does look comfortable, you know, like being hung up by one foot doesn't look like you would want to be there, but inevitably this figure is, I don't know if enjoying it is the right word, but you know, Danielle said surrender. There's kind of this feeling of serenity or peace that a lot of you guys have talked about. And so, you know, this card often represents being in that state in your life. So when you're having that moment where you've been turned upside down, like something has happened that feels really unfamiliar, really strange, and uncomfortable. But the wisdom in this card is that those moments of discomfort have wisdom in them when you can surrender to that moment. And so, you know, wisdom is often something that comes up around the hanged person. And I think there's something here, I'm not super familiar with the myth, but it makes me think a bit about Odin hanging himself from the tree. Do you guys, are you familiar with the Norse mythology? So Odin is like the father of the Norse gods, and I could be getting this wrong, but there's something around him wanting to have the knowledge of all the universe, and he sort of casts the spell essentially that requires him to be hung from a tree for, you know, 3 days and 3 nights or something like that. And that's kind of how he gathers the knowledge of the universe. So it's sort of a symbol of like, in order to really understand, you have to be in places that feel really strange. Like in order to understand, you have to be in places that you don't understand. You have to be willing to allow yourself to learn within unfamiliarity. And when we insist on staying in familiarity, especially when something is happening out of our control, that it just, you know, we can't always control being in familiarity. Like we often are in unfamiliar situations. The wisdom is to receive, you know, the gifts that come from that.
Mm-hmm.
There's two thoughts that come to mind, and they don't necessarily relate, but if you turned it upside down, she looks like she's in tree pose.
Yes, yeah.
Which is balancing and testing you a bit, testing your balance, and maybe shaking you up a bit or unsettling. And the other thing is that when you hang upside down, everything shifts and everything looks different, including what goes on in your body. But when you right yourself up again, in some ways it was like a mini rejuvenation, because you've unsettled everything and now things start to settle down again, which can be unsettling and then settling and feels good. So as I say, those two don't really connect, but those were the two thoughts that came to mind when I looked at the card. It's a beautiful card.
It is beautiful in this deck, yeah, absolutely. And it's always that pose in all the decks when you see this image. And I'm not sure if there's something, you know, specific about this pose, but I know that in Indian and Tantric mythology, it's usually a seated pose, but you'll often see the gods and goddesses kind of sitting like with one leg up and one leg down. And they're always teaching when they're in that pose. So it's always a teaching moment. So I don't know if there's like specifically a relationship here with that, or if there are sort of other ways of looking at that. But, you know, someone who has one foot tucked up is like pretty comfortable. You know, they're not running, they're not, you know, trying to get away. They're in that odd balance, like you said. And I agree. I think, you know, I forget the quote exactly, but headstand is one of the most primary forms of meditation, because when you're in headstand, you can't think about anything else but being in headstand, right? And so there's this wisdom to and you know, we don't have to do headstand today, but there's a wisdom to inverting, to letting your head go below your heart. And part of what I think about with that too is like, when you let your head go below your heart, you're allowing your heart to be the place that is in charge rather than the head. You know, that's often what I think about when the head goes below the heart in yoga. It's like you let go of your ego so that you can lead from that place of knowing that's deep inside of your body. And that to me is like a really sweet, comforting kind of a reminder, right? That there's wisdom here. And so much of the time we try to do it from here. And we get frustrated and we give ourselves headaches because we're trying to figure things out that aren't always figure outable. Or we're trying to control things with our rational brains that are, you know, that our rational brains have just this wonderful paradoxical quality where they're both very smart and also extremely good at making things up or lying to us, and we'll believe, you know, what our brains are saying, even though they're so far off of, you know, someone else's logic. Like if we were to look at it, our brains do some really interesting gymnastics to kind of get us through the day with some delusions that we don't realize are delusions, right? And so when we drop down into the heart, it's a different kind of truth that we find there, right? So I love this card. I think it's just a beautiful reminder. And I think especially, you know, if you personally are in a moment of feeling like you've been hung upside down in whatever way, that you're kind of in an unfamiliar place or something is happening that you don't have control over, it's a lovely reminder that it's okay to be here. You know, there are gifts in this place where you feel a little off balance. Being off balance isn't inherently bad, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about that? I think this will be a lovely one to feel in our bodies. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, beautiful. So let's do that. So as you're ready, let's just come to a seat and we'll begin our movement practice. So just a simple cross-legged seat is great, but whatever works for you is fine. And just taking the first few moments in your seat, again, movement is totally welcome. You don't have to be fully still in these places. But just imagine yourself dropping down into your heart. Surrendering your practice to the wisdom of your body, your heart, your gut, and just giving your brain a little break. When you're ready, start to tap into a rhythmic breath that will help to keep you in your body. And classically, this would be ujjayi. So inhaling and exhaling through the nose, finding this lift and widening through the ribs on the inhale. And exhaling just to connect gently to the core and the pelvic floor. No clenching needed there, just sort of an energetic lift. And you may start to hear a little ocean sound at the back of your throat that will help to keep you connected to your body in that breath. And then from your intuition, you can allow your body to start to move. So you can keep your eyes closed if that's comfortable for you, and just start to see what movement your body wants. So for example, rocking forward and back or side to side, making circles, rolling your shoulders or your head. There's no wrong way to do this. Okay, just think about allowing your breath to move in your body in a way that feels right for you. And I kind of have that image today that we're in that sort of ethereal space, not quite underwater, but maybe it's ether, right? It's sort of being in that in-between place where the air feels golden and light to the touch. And this energy of the sort of baby waxing moon, just barely waxing moon. We're still in that intuitive new moon energy. I think this is a very new moon sort of card. Trusting in those intuitions. When you feel ready, we can sort of aim towards hands and knees. There's no rush to get there. And we'll keep doing the same thing, just moving intuitively on hands and knees. So through some sort of a cat and cow shape, again, circles, rocking back and forth, just shifting the plane of gravity, but continuing on with this intuitive mission. And then we can keep going like this or move into the water wheel. So I'm just going to tuck my toes under, widen the knees a little bit, and walk my hands forward about a handprint. Hips can come back to the heels, curling the belly forward, sort of through a little mini plank, and you can draw through a little bit of a back bend there as much as feels good for you. Bringing the hips back to the heels, curling forward. Just taking your time. I don't mind so much if the breath sort of perfectly matches the movement that you're doing, but I want you to keep connected to that sense of rhythm with the breath. You can keep doing this or sit back on your heels or come to your belly. Take your fingertips wide to the right and to the left, lifting your heart up as you inhale. Exhale, gently come down. Inhale to lift. And lower. Good, lift again. Let's add a little twist. Looking left, you can dip your right shoulder if that feels good. Through center, dip the left, looking right. One more time each side if that's working for you. Up through center, soften down, and then let's make our way to child's pose. Take your favorite version, knees as wide as you like, arms could be forward or beside your hips, allowing the forehead to rest on the earth and just taking a few moments to receive in stillness. In your own time, let's find our way to downward facing dog. So you can walk your hands forward again, lift up the hips, and pedal the heels out. If downward dog isn't working for you today, feel free to stay on hands and knees, just extending one leg back at a time. And we've been doing this one a little bit this week. I find it actually just feels really good. So feel free to join me for it. Feet are about a foot apart. You'll lift my heels, drop them to the right, and then press my hips back into the right. Arc the heels up through center to the left and leaning your hips back into the left. Back to center when you're ready and travel up to standing forward bend. Feet as wide as you like them. You could be hanging down. You could be resting your elbows on your thighs, hands on the ground, whatever works for you. But just take a moment to really allow your head to relax, surrendering your head below your heart. Add any movements that you want here, or just be in stillness. Again, your eyes can be closed. Trust your body. That whatever it wants to do, whatever it feels good is the right thing for you today. And then let's roll up, take your time. And if you can, let the head and shoulders come up last. And engage the belly, lean back into the heels as you rise. Of course, if that doesn't work for you, you can rise up any way that does. Finding your standing. Taking a moment just to be there, to feel your feet rooted into the earth. Your energy rising up through the crown of your head. Okay, lift up your toes, spread them apart, reconnect them. Lean into your left foot and pick up your right knee. We'll come into tree pose. So you can take the sole of your foot to the inside of your leg, the shin, or the inner thigh, so just above or below the knee. I like to press my fingertips together for tree. I find it quite helps me to balance. And some of you might explore picking up that foot, pointing the toes and bringing it up to your upper thigh. So this is a little bit more of the hanged man shape that we sometimes come into, or rather that you see on the cards. Okay. And if you want to get fancy with it, you can wrap, sorry, let me turn to the side. You can wrap your right arm around your back and see if you can hold on to your toes. It helps to bend the left knee a little bit, so you're kind of deepening your hip crease, but keep your belly gently engaged, and the left hand can come to your heart. Allow yourself to be suspended in this somewhat strange balance. Okay, bring your hands back to your heart if they're not. Gently release your leg, hug the knee into your chest. And step back into a high lunge. So the foot comes towards the back of the mat, heel is lifted nice and high. Square the hips to the front, and you could reach your arms up. I like interlacing the fingers with the first finger pointing up. See if that mudra works for you. Allow the shoulders to kind of soften as you lift your heart, but keep your tailbone long. Inhale here, then softly open to warrior two. So allow that back heel to land and your arms to float open. You may need to adjust your stance a little bit, maybe lengthening it, front knee over top of the ankle. Notice what your hands are doing and soften them. Nice full breaths here. Then bring your elbow down to your thigh and your right bicep alongside your ear, coming into a side angle shape. Pressing the outer arch of the foot into the mat, gently opening your heart to the sky, finding that lovely side stretch kind of feeling. You may or may not want to come down a little bit lower here. Fingertips could come to the inside of the leg, for example. I'm going to stay right here. Inhale, and then gently release your hands from whatever they're doing to the inside of your front leg. Walk them along the long edge of the mat until your feet can parallel. Yeah, lift your heart halfway and then gently fold down, again, surrendering the crown of your head below your heart. You can keep your hands just under your shoulders. You could also reach them forward, which is a variation I love. Some of you love interlacing the fingers around behind the back. You could take that one too. Receiving the inversion. Beautiful. Okay, from here, take a little halfway lift. And then we're going to turn to the back of the mat. Okay, so your right toes are going to turn to the right, to the back of your mat, and you're going to come into side angle. So bringing your elbow to your thigh, taking the bicep alongside the ear. Good. Lengthening the tailbone, turning the heart open. Gently engage the belly, look down and come up through warrior two. Make sure your knee is over your ankle. Soften your hands and your elbows a little bit, but keep them connected. So not floppy, but just soft. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to transition into high lunge here. So the way that I like to do that is I take my back hand, inhale, and then I sweep it down as I come onto the ball of my back foot, and then up from there. That's it. You can interlace the fingers, pressing the first one up to the sky. Tailbone long, back leg straightening. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Just getting nice and long through the spine. Inhale, bring the hands to the heart and softly step forward so that you're standing essentially at the back of your mat, if that makes sense. Take a moment just to receive that, being maybe in an unfamiliar position, right? If we were all in class together, we'd be facing away from each other. Slightly unfamiliar. Receiving the wisdom of that. Okay, lift your toes up, spread them apart. Reconnect them to the earth, lean into your right foot and come into tree pose with your left. So the left foot comes to your ankle or shin or thigh, and knee opening to the side. The fingertips can press into each other, which I find really useful for balance. Okay, and some of you might want to try this variation whose name is escaping me right now. But we've just got the toes pointed and the arch of, or sorry, the outer arch of the foot is kind of in the hip crease. Okay, and I like to bend my standing leg a little bit just to deepen that hip crease. You're kind of pressing your foot into the leg a little bit. And then you might be able to wrap your left arm around and hold the toes so that you can then let go and have your right hand at your heart. Just feeling this kind of weird shape, a little bit unfamiliar. It's, I think it's standing half lotus actually is what it is. Okay, release your hands if they're not already at your heart. Release the leg, gently draw the knee into your chest. Inhale, and as you exhale, step back to high lunge. Good. Soft bend to the knee to help tilt the tailbone down, square the hips. You can work that back leg towards straight. Arms come up this time. Try bringing the palms together and bending the elbows so that you're just gently supporting the back of your head. Hug the elbows together and scoop up to the sky. Okay, release the arms up and then float open to warrior two. So allow that back heel to land. Well, that wasn't a very graceful float. It was a bit of a tumble, but that's okay. Bringing the knee over the ankle, leveling out the back hip, and then again, just softening so the arms feel supported, almost as if they were floating in that ether. Inhale, and then bring your elbow to your thigh, coming into side angle. Maybe as we come in again here, you might want to try something else. For example, holding the back of your skull with that top arm, allowing the elbow to bend. Some of you might find that maybe now you can bring your hand down and it feels okay. Inhale, release the hands to the inside of that front leg. Walk along the long edge of your mat until you can parallel your feet. Lift your heart and gently melt And again, take your favorite variation of this inversion here. So your hands can just be down, you can reach them forward. Some of you are pretty comfortable in a tripod or a teddy bear headstand. I'm not going to really go into teaching that today, but if you want to kind of explore the crown of your head reaching down, palms on the ground in a tripod with your head, maybe the knees come to the elbows. And if you're in a headstand variation, just when you're ready, gently coming out, and then everybody can just kind of relax the head and neck, maybe give it a little shake. Okay, and then turning to what was the front of your mat. So the left toes turn to the left, and we're coming back into side angle. So depending on how you're feeling here, you might explore keeping your hand down on the ground and taking that bicep alongside the ear. You might rather start up on the elbow, and that's fine. And again, you can try taking that, bending the elbow and holding the head. Maybe coming down lower again if it feels right for you today. Gently floating up to warrior two. Soft hands and elbows and shoulders, but supported. Inhale, and then we're going to come into that high lunge. So scoop the back hand down as you come to the ball of the back foot. Both arms come forward. You might need to adjust that back foot a little bit, reaching up. And again, you can take the elbows to bend, holding the back of your skull, hiking the elbows in and rising up. Inhale, and then gently bring the hands back to your heart and softly step forward. Beautiful, you guys. Reach your arms up to the sky. Exhale, dive. Lengthen halfway. Exhale, fold, and just pause here for a moment, allowing, again, the head to relax. And then step back to your downward facing dog. Some of you may want to take a full vinyasa here. That's welcome. You can also just stay right here. Vinyasa can mean a lot of different things, including cat and cow. Classically, you come forward to a plank and then lower down halfway or all the way. Then pull through to cobra or upward facing dog. Return to downward dog. And then bring down your knees, everybody. Roll up to standing on the knees, reaching the arms up to the sky. And then as you exhale, bring the fingertips and the forehead down. Do that 2 more times. Okay, and then rest in child's pose, or again, you can come forward to plank or to your belly. Take a little back bend, your favorite one. And then return to your downward dog. Okay, and then we'll come to standing on our knees again. Step your right foot forward and we'll come into this kind of funny short lunge situation. Back toes can be tucked or not. We'll draw the tailbone lightly down. Take the right hand onto the thigh, reach the left arm up. Stay here, just getting that lovely length, or take the hand around to the lower back and lift your heart. Stay here or come into half camel, bringing the hand down to the heel, reaching the right arm up, holding the back of the skull. Squeeze the bum. Gently come back through center, right hand comes forward, and the left. Okay, so I'm going to turn away from you just for a moment here. So the left foot, that's the back leg, you're just going to turn it to the back so that you're in this kind of funny Captain Morgan stance, is my best way of describing it. Then take your elbow to your thigh and take a little side stretch. Up through center, allow that left hand to come down to the floor. Straighten out your right leg, plant the toes on the earth, and take the right bicep alongside the ear. So gate pose. Stay, or some of you will want to float the leg up off the mat, bend it, take a hold of the foot, and come into a little bit of a back bend. Gently release the leg and come to standing on your knees. And then you can walk to face, doesn't matter which way. I'm going to turn to face the back just because we're in this mode of switching around. Doesn't really matter though, which way you face here. Step your left foot forward. Left hand on the thigh, reaching the right arm up, just pausing here, back toes can be tucked or not. You're certainly welcome to pad your knee. Just finding that lovely length here, or wrapping the right arm around to the lower back, lifting the heart, maybe bringing the hand down to the heel, reaching the left arm up, holding the skull. So one of the reasons I like to tuck the back toes under is it's closer for my hand to reach. Half camel. Gently come back, left hand forward, then the right. Good. And then we'll turn the right toes back to the long edge of the mat so that you're in this Captain Morgan sort of situation. I'm facing away from you again, but you guys kind of know where we're going. Okay, then you can bring your elbow to your thigh and take a little side stretch. Inhale through center, bring the hands down to the right side, right hand down to the right side. Straighten out the left leg and take gate pose. Left bicep alongside the ear. Lovely shape, you're welcome to stay there. Or you could float your foot up off the ground, bend the leg, hold on to it, come into a little back bend. Whoop. Gently release the leg, come up to standing on your knees. Turn to face your mat and choose either child's pose or downward dog. And maybe you want to flow through a little vinyasa there just to rinse that out. Remember that vinyasa could be cat and cow. And then take a moment just to pause wherever works for you. So child's pose, sitting on your heels, downward dog, these are all good options. Okay, and then I'm going to invite you to take an inversion that you like. Okay, child's pose is an inversion. So is downward dog. So is standing forward fold. Okay, so is headstand or handstand. So I'm not going to specifically teach, the more complex inversions, but if they're in your practice and you're really comfortable with them, feel free to take, headstand or handstand as you like. Legs up the wall is another beautiful inversion. We are going to start cooling down after this. I'm just going to take child's pose, really simple. So I just want you to have that experience of allowing your head to go below your heart in whatever way works for your body today. And you're welcome to follow me if you're not quite sure. And just surrendering yourself to that upside downness. If you're coming out of headstand, you could rest in child's pose or standing forward bend, just letting the head relax. Child's pose is nice after handstand or forearm stand, the other more intense inversions as well. If you're in a bit more of a relaxing inversion, you can just stay there for another couple of breaths. And then we're going to meet in a seat. So just depending on where you are, take your time to find your way into a comfortable seat. No rush. And then you're going to take your feet about mat's distance apart. Turn the knees to the right and follow them, coming into a little bit of a spiral twist. If you like, bring your right ear over towards your right shoulder, just releasing the side of the neck. Head back to neutral, gently turn to center and go to the other way. So let the knees fall to the left and then just spiral with them, gentle twist. Both shoulders down the back. You might take the left ear to the left shoulder. Gently come through center. Let's release that. You can wash your legs side to side if you like. And then come and have a seat. Probably on a little bit of support, and extend your legs forward. You can give them a little shake. So I'll mirror you for this part, but it doesn't matter which side you do first. Okay, we're going to come into a tree shape. So this is, you can take your right knee and bend it and then open it to the right so that you've just got this nice familiar shape that we've been working with today. And if you're feeling really comfortable in it, you could actually do half lotus here. So you could point the toes and bring the foot into the hip crease. Now just be aware of your knee here. There shouldn't be any pain at all in your knee. For me, it's feeling like that might be a little bit too intense for my hip today. So I'm going to stay in this tree shape, okay? But you have that option if you want to try it and it's comfortable for you. Sitting up nice and tall, flexing the left foot, gently fold forward over your leg. If it feels safe and comfortable, allow your head to relax. Gently roll up and we'll softly switch sides. Just carefully release your leg, extend them forward. You might want to do a little shake. And then bend the left leg and open it into a tree or maybe a half lotus if that's a really comfortable shape for you, which for me it's not. I feel like I would want my knee comfortably on the ground if I felt like that was safe for me. And I just don't want to do that today. So I'm going to stick with the tree. Sitting up nice and tall and then folding over that long leg, keeping the right foot flexed. You can absolutely bend the left knee a little bit, or the right knee, sorry, a little bit if you need to. Experimenting with relaxing the head. When that feels complete for you, we'll gently rise up. Release the legs. You can again give them a little bit of a shake. Okay, and then you have a choice. So choice number one is you can come into Shavasana and you can rest and receive your practice. Okay. If there's a last pose that you need before your rest, please feel free to take that. Generally, a symmetrical pose that is calming, even just a forward fold over your straight legs is a great idea. You could also take a couple of minutes before your Shavasana to sit in meditation or do a little journaling. So if there's anything that's come up for you today that you're wanting to write down, especially around just this moment of the moon, please feel free to do that. Okay. So wherever feels right for you, we'll just take a couple of minutes and we'll all eventually meet in Shavasana. And feel free to stay as you are as long as you'd like. When you're ready, let's come into Shavasana. So again, if there's anything that you need to feel ready for Shavasana, anything you need to do to set up your Shavasana, feel free to take it. You don't really need anything for Shavasana. You can just lay flat on the ground. And receive the work of your practice. So take a moment to notice how you're feeling. Checking in with your mood, the energy of your body. Perhaps also noticing your alignment with that gently waxing moon. If you're starting to feel that shifting energy towards movement and action of the waxing moon, or if you're feeling quite comfortably in the dark with the new moon. And then if you feel ready, you can start to deepen your breath and bring some small movements into your toes and fingers. Maybe a stretch would feel good. And then you can draw your knees into your chest, roll over to one side, gently making your way back to a seat. You can bring your hands together in front of your heart or over top or wherever feels right for you today. And gently bowing your mind to your hands. Take a moment to honor and acknowledge your practice, your showing up, your body, your breath. Honoring and acknowledging the long and complex lineage that is with us in our practice. Honoring and acknowledging the sacredness of the land that we practice on. Thank you for sharing that practice with me.